Hi everyone, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of those who've joined me recently and those of you who've been supporting me over the last couple of years. I think you may have noticed that a lot of things are starting to come together at the moment. For those of you who have been here for a while or just joined me, I want to show you a feature that I've added to my Patreon page to help you navigate it more effectively. So if you take a look at the moment, if you were to scroll down the thread on the Patreon page, you'll see lots of different posts. So the last one I put out was the Tree of Religion, the latest version in development. Then you can see that for the creator tier, I've put out a post recently that shows you megalithic cultures that have made their way onto the tree. And then the Oracle tier and all the other tiers, I've been showing specific religions like the Bhimbekta rock site in India. And then down here for the Arcanist tier, the Bruniqual Cave, where there is ancient signs of religious activity in deep in the Stone Age, like I think it's 176,000 BCE. And then for the Champion tier, the Wangina rock art. So again, you can see there's posts for each tier that come out every week. But if you were to go down the thread, it would go on for miles and miles and miles because I've literally got like I think about 4 years of content or 5 years content on here. So it's just, going down one thread at a time. You'll see things like podcasts, infographics I've been making, and more of the posts on religion. But it'll take you ages trying to make sense of it all. So what I've done is I've created a tag list right at the top of the page. So you can see here, these are all the main posts I've been bringing out over the last couple of years. And my main focus has been on archetypes. For those of you who've just joined me, an archetype is a god that is like the embodiment of a specific kind of god that appears all around the world. So for instance, if you have Thor or Zeus, they are both storm gods, and they are both in charge of things like thunder and shooting lightning. They tend to have things like hammers or bolts of lightning, and they tend to dispense justice and keep people in check. There's loads of characteristics about them that are very similar. They're very temperamental. They lose their rag very easily. And as you study all of these archetypes around the world, you realize they all seem to be singing off the same hymn sheet. So what I've done is I've put them into a tag list to make it easier to explore them. So rather than going down the thread one god at a time, which will take you years to figure out, just use this tag list. So for instance, I've got things like the Materialist, which is a creator god. I've got the Preserver, which is a goddess of eternal youth. The Producer, which is a god of vegetation. And then here you can see there's 26 more different tags. Let's say you wanted to look at the Reaper. If you click on that, it'll take you to this page where it's just one single thread that focuses on all of my Reaper archetypes and gods. So if I go down to the bottom, you can see again using the tier system, I have a Champion tier, an Arcanist tier, an Oracle tier, and a Creator tier. So in this case, Giltine was the Lithuanian god of death. Then we have above that Anku, the Breton god of death. Thanatos, the Greek personification of death, and so on. All different types of death gods throughout all world culture. And when you get to the end of the 12 archetypes, I then bring out another post where I put them all together in one nice big infographic, which you'll see up here, 12 Reaper archetypes. And it just gives you a nice overview of all the different gods, and it gives you a flavour of how they're all very similar. And that's for the Champion tier. When we go over here to the next one up, it's a reconstruction article. This is an important one for me because it brings all the information together to show you why archetypes share such similar features. And this is an Arcanist tier. So if I click on continue reading, it shows you all the characteristics of this archetype, tells you the family and the home where they lived, which tends to be in morgues and in the underworld. We also have domains and powers. So for instance, the Reaper has the power to end a person's life using one of several methods. One was by using the power of touch to stop a person's heart from beating. In Lithuania, death would sit on a person's chest or choke the life out of them. And in other Slavic regions, death carried a diseased rag to weaken her patience. So it just gives you all the different information on these gods, personality, role in history, and icons, symbols, and attire. So it just gives you a general overview of what these archetypes were, how they appeared in world culture. And then it shows you other archetypes from around the world and the resources I used to put these deities together. So lots of books, as you can see, and lots of websites. And if I go back, you'll see then that the last post I bring out, which is on the Oracle tier, is an actual illustrated guide to the Reaper. So what you see when you click on this illustrated guide is all the key symbols and features that are parallel and comparative amongst all the Reaper archetypes around the world. So The domain is death. The role is to transition us from life into afterlife. The sphere is the mortal coil. They are the patron of the dying. Their home tends to be in tombs and cemeteries. The weapons they use are typically a scythe. They have the power to end a person's life using the power of touch. The element is often ash and smoke, because when you set a body on fire and turn it from material to ash, the ash goes off into the ether and dissipates. And they believed that they were literally turning the physical body into an ethereal body where it would go into the afterlife. And then finally, we have totems that are linked to these archetypes. In this case, a divine ledger where they write down the name of the person who died and their life works and their life experience. And that is used in the underworld when they are judged by the judge gods. And then finally, we have black beasts, which are typically horses, hounds, and ravens. And that, in a nutshell, sums up the process of rebuilding an archetype. I'm going to be dropping some videos on these archetypes over the next couple of months and years as well, which will be part of the creator tier. And I'll also eventually release it on my YouTube channel. So now I want to show you how I'm going to bring this all together. The Tree of Religion, which a lot of you have joined me this week, so thank you very much for joining me. This is going to be an interactive infographic online eventually, so let's just click on that. So as you can see now, the tree's taking shape, and there's lots of different branches I've added. So there's branches on the African traditions and religions. There's loads of branches now on the Siberian here in orange. Another thing I've done is added a timeline that goes further back in history. So let me just show you down here. So 170,000 to 30,000 BCE is the Paleolithic era. And that's where you got a lot of hunting myths and a lot of animistic religions. And it's the most primitive religions we know of that exist even today. As we move up the timeline, we have 20,000 BCE to 11,000 BCE. And that shows us the myths and the religions that appeared in the Mesolithic. And you can see that's where we start getting shamanism coming into play. So you get lots of cave art and figurines appearing in the timeline. You even get Göbekli Tepe, which is the first temple. And again, it seems to be linked with animals and seems to be linked with hunting. As we go to the Neolithic era, which is 9,500 to 4,100 BCE, we move into the agricultural age. And this is where you get lots of agricultural themes appearing in religion and mythology. So you get things like Stonehenge and the Karnak stones, where they use them to understand the mechanics of nature, how the seasons change and how the sun gets warmer in the summer and colder in the winter, and how it affects the harvest and so on. So there's a lot of interesting myths start to appear here, and you get lots of agricultural gods appearing. And as you go further up the list, we have 4,000 BCE to 1,000 BCE, and that's a mixture of the Copper and the Bronze Age. In terms of mythology, they're more familiar to us because we see them in movies today. So you've got things like the Greek myths, which appear here, Greek polytheism. You also get a lot of Mesopotamian myths and religions, which focus on things like the Epic of Gilgamesh. So all those appear in this region here. And the flavour of these is, again, the technology of the time is weaponry. So you get lots of war-based myths, especially with the Hindu epics. And you get things like immortality and the secret of eternal youth. Those kind of myths start appearing here as well. And then the final area I'm working on the timeline is 800 BCE to 2200 Common Era. And these are the myths and religions that a lot of people are familiar with today because a lot of them are still here. So we have things like Catholicism. We have Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism is still with us. We've got lots of pagan myths appearing, which are reconstructing the old myths of the past and the old religions. So you've got neo-paganism, Wicca, and we've got on the Hindu branch, again, a lot of myths with us still today and a lot of religions from the Hindu traditions. So that's to just give you an idea of the shape of the tree. And another issue I've got at the moment is a lot of these religions over here in the Americas and Polynesia, they're starting to overlap on each other. So I'm having a bit of a problem here. So what I'm going to do is trim maybe one or two branches over here, just compress them down a bit so I can fit in these religions and make sure they don't overlap. And that's it. The final thing I want to tell you is that when this becomes interactive, what I want you to do is go online and you'll be able to go deeper into this tree by clicking on these icons. So let's say, for instance, clicked on Finnish Shamanism here. It would take you into a web page and it would show you the basic doctrine of Finnish shamanism, the kind of gods they worshipped, and the practices and the rituals that they performed. And then if you go deeper into that again, you can then go and look at things like the particular gods and goddesses, and you can read all about them if you go in deeper into the tree. And eventually then you can look at the archetypes, which I'll also be layering in. So I hope that gives you a nice overview how it's going to work. I just wanted to say thank you all for following me. Your help means so much because it means I can continue this work, and there's so much more to do. This is going to be many, many years before it's all fully realized. But I want this to be like the Wikipedia of religion and myth, so people can just go into this infographic and learn everything they want to about myth and religion. And it's going to be useful for so many different kinds of people because it might be interesting for people in religious studies who want to know about how religion evolved and how it changed and the difference between polytheism, monotheism, and animism, and so on. If you are a creative person, you're a writer, and you want to create a story world, then this graphic is really useful to show you how myths and religions evolve, and you can create your own flavors and your own tastes by understanding how there are agricultural gods and how there are Bronze Age gods. So again, you can build that into the timeline of your story world. And also just modern day pagans and modern day religious people who are interested in learning more about the history of their religion. It's all nested into this tree. So there we are, that's the shape of it. And like I said, eventually then when this is finished, it will go online and you'll be able to interact with it and make more sense of it. There will be a tier system in place. So depending on what level of the tree people want to go into, they'll have to pay $2, $5, $10 or $30 to access the different levels that are nested within the tree. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you very much for following me, and I hope you all have a great week. Expect loads more content to come for the rest of this week and following in next month. And thanks again for all your support. Ciao for now.